Welcome to Life on Life's Terms. It's your host, Justin, with
Chelsey.
Today's episode, we have the wonderful Melinda Hollis in the studio today. And the topics that we're going to talk about is what is a medium? That's what Melinda is. And we're also going to talk, and she's also a psychotherapist, so we're going to talk about how those two come together. And then we're going to also talk about some of the experiences that she's had. So welcome to the show. How are you this afternoon?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me today, Justin and Chelsey.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I was really excited about this. Do you have any idea how hard it is to book a medium on a show?
No.
It was hard.
So,
well, I'm here.
So I actually booked, I called like, I don't know, what did I say, 10?
Around there, yeah.
I tried to call 10 mediums to come in, and what I would get is, maybe, I might come in, and then I would get, let me call you back in a week, and then I would get, I don't think it fits my schedule, and then I would get, and it just kept on going and going, and this was almost like, 6 weeks?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
We were trying, and then the beautiful thing is, you called me, and you're like, hey, so what's this thing about a podcast? And here you are literally 4 days later.
Right.
No hesitation.
Let's do it.
Awesome.
So congratulations. That's pretty amazing, right?
It's a nice surprise.
Yeah. Isn't it funny the way how this all kind of works out?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, everything works out the way it's meant to, isn't it?
Yeah,
I agree.
Exactly. I agree with that. So let's talk about your definition of a medium.
Well, that's a very, very broad question and answer. Mediumship is having the ability to connect to frequencies, vibrations of people that have passed on, our spirit guides, to others, telepathic. So spirit, meaning soul, is the ability for me as a medium to tune into the frequency of that spirit and be able to hear them and communicate with them.
Okay. What might be a fair comparison? So, like, I guess to laity, if I were to use that term loosely, they may want to look at like a Ouija board or something along those lines. That I wouldn't suspect that that's a fair comparison.
Well, for me, mediumship, I literally hear it inside of me, inside of my head. It's like somebody whispering inside of me.
Okay.
Is the best way. I could hear them through my head is the best way.
Okay. I've heard that for some people, they will involuntarily say what a spirit is trying to tell them. Has that ever happened with you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
I'll be sitting somewhere and all of a sudden it's like, tap, tap, tap. I want to speak to that person.
Mm.
And it's interesting now that we're talking about that. I had a very, very interesting spirit come visit me a few years ago, and it was Princess Diana.
Wow.
And so for a whole week, she kept saying to me, Charles. And I'm like, look, Charles is not here. Charles is in England. I'm in Edmonton. Mm-hmm. But she kept going on about Charles. And I'm sitting in this Chinese restaurant having my faux soup, and I reach over to the Edmonton Sun, and I'm flipping through it, and I come across, I think it was page 8 article, and said, Charles Spencer will be in Edmonton this coming Friday.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, oh, it's Charles Spencer she wants me to connect with. So, okay, off I go. It was his furniture showing. Off I go to see Charles Spencer. And I'm like, look, if I say anything, I'm going to be hauled out of there like I'm some nut bar. So I get there, and it was interesting because it's almost like he connected with kind of knowing that I was there for a reason of some sort, because our eyes met and they locked for a bit. And I'm like, well, I can't say anything to him. I'm going to get hauled out of here. So I ended up not relaying any information.
Oh.
Because I didn't have the opportunity. I couldn't walk up to him and say, look, your sister's been bothering me all week.
Yeah.
She wants to connect with you. So that was my Princess Diane story of how she came about. And they do that. Like, so when spirits from the other side see an opportunity to kind of use you as a vehicle or a vessel to communicate with one of their loved ones, they're right there.
Right.
And sometimes it feels like a lineup
Oh.
of spirits. Yeah, I want to talk to him too. I want to talk. So the other side knows that you have this gift and ability, and they want to. And yeah, many times I've stopped a stranger in a supermarket or a restaurant and said, look, did you lose a person with this name, or they look like this? And it always brings wonderful joy to people.
I bet.
And peace, right?
Do you ever find the lineup, so to speak, overwhelming?
Only when they try to talk all at once,
I bet.
you know?
I think we have that sometimes on the podcast.
Yeah.
We have like 4 different mics going, and everybody wants their words in edgewise kind of thing. And it becomes just this big cluster of all of these voices.
Yes.
I can empathize with you.
So just, mediumship is very much like a radio tuner. It's tuning into a frequency, and I was born with that gift. My first experience of mediumship was with God. As a child, I used to have this ability to connect with him. And I would go there for comfort when life was not very good. When I felt unsafe in the world, I would communicate with God. And I would feel this incredible love from him, and felt loved when I didn't feel loved on earth. So that's where it started as a child. And I thought, gee, everybody could do what I'm doing.
So did you, was there any way of fostering the ability, or was it just innate? Like it was just, it is what it is. This is as much as it's going to be. Or was there any development within that, like the mediumship skill, so to say?
Well, I felt this incredible connection to spirit, to God, whatever you want to. That's, I think, where the fostering started, because I always saw it as this connection. And God isn't out there, he's within us. And the fostering and growth around it, I just thought everybody could do what I'm doing. And I could read people's minds, and I'd be telling them I could read minds. What I was actually trying to express as a child was I can tune in and pick up. So where it started to develop more for me is I was going to actually go into being a nun.
Oh, wow.
So
that's a tough discernment.
I wanted to serve God or spirit. And so what ended up happening was, of course, figured out that surrendering yourself completely wasn't what I wanted, and I wanted to serve spirit. I felt I could do it without becoming a nun or a priest or anything, and still made the commitment of only doing good with my gift. So during my teenage years was when I started to recognize that there were names for what I could do. So I'd go, well, I could do that. I could move things. I could hear people talk inside my head.
Yeah.
So, I started to get into different forms of religion and spirituality and practicing it. Even the Ouija board.
Yeah.
At some point, playing with it a bit. So, it came with a cost.
Yeah.
Being a psychic, because you still get burnt at the stake. You're still a witch. You know,
Yeah.
people still have a very negative connotation because we live in a world that's very, very science-based.
Yeah.
However, part of science is quantum physics, and that's all connected to energy. So it's always, well, if you can't believe it, if there's no facts to back it up, it doesn't exist. However, we do not have the means or the tools at this time to measure psychic abilities. Russia has been very, very strong for many, many years in using that even within their government.
Yeah, the MK Ultra, their version of MK Ultra, right? Americans have been doing that too. I think that's what you're insinuating is the MK Ultra ideal. The other thing I was just going to bring up too is, so I lived in Northern Ontario for a while. Said this on the show before, and I saw a medium in a place called Kapuskasing, Ontario, and this lady, she went into a trance, and she's actually endorsed by the Catholic Church. So where she lived was in one of the old rectories in the Kapuskasing area, and so you could give her a penny, you could give her $100. All the funds that she acquired went to the Catholic Church, and she didn't tell me anything about my past. It was like she said, because she's French, she was French, so she basically said to me in French, there's no need to talk about what you already know has happened.
Correct.
Yeah, and so she went into the future. She went as far as my incarceration. She went in depth, and there's still probably another 3 or 4 years that I still haven't experienced from that reading, and that happened when I was like 17 years old, right? Like
Lots has come true.
Everything.
Wow.
What her predictions basically were on life turning points, right? So and then the other thing is, so my pretend friend, my grandfather died when my mom was 2, and I never met him. So my middle name is his name, Alcid. So we had thought, but there's a little bit of a skeleton in the family closet where that wasn't really his name. So he was married before being Catholic. You don't get divorced. He didn't like his wife. He found my grandmother. Long story short, he changed his name instead of getting a divorce, because back then they were just giving out social insurance numbers like all the time, right? So it wasn't a big deal to change your name. So he changed his name to Alcid Robert, which is not like my last name. Robert is not like a real last name that's genuine to a family. He just made that up. His real name was Armin Strasberg. And so anyways, my mom wanted to know about her dad, so she was looking through all these research things. And I had a pretend friend named Armin. Wow. My entire childhood. And so my mom finally gets a picture of her dad, and I came home from school, and she had just found out that her dad's name was Armin.
Oh my goodness.
So she's sitting down with me, and she said, look at this picture. There's a black and white picture. And she's trying not to scare me, right? I was like 7 years old, 7, maybe 8. And this was right before I started doing drugs. So anyways, she shows me this picture, and she's like, this is my family. I said, that's my pretend friend. And I pointed to my grandfather, right? Who I had never met in real life, right? And then later on, so this gets pretty trippy. Later on, I was at a precipice with my addiction. It was pretty bad. I was drinking heavily, but I had intervals of sobriety, so to say, or abstinence, we'll say. And I said to my family, like on my mom's side, my mom has very dark brown eyes and jet black hair, but her dad, they all have these crazy blue eyes. And I said to my mom, I said, remember when you saw those blue eyes when you were really young? I said, you got really scared? She was probably about 4. She said, yeah. I said, that was your grandfather.
Wow.
And I said, when you told him to go away because you were afraid, your dad can never come around you, but he's been watching you your entire life.
Oh, and at that moment, just got goosebumps.
Yeah.
At that moment, my mom was never a positive person. She's always depressed. And at that moment, everything changed. So I guess the piece to it is I just, I think that there's definitely, like, I just read this article about how we're innately connected to our family in some way, be it all the way up to your great grandparents through your DNA, your molecular structure, almost, right? Like why are you afraid of a shark, or why are you afraid of deep water? I mean, it's not, especially living in Canada. Bloody hell, we're in Alberta. Yeah. There's no need to be afraid of deep water. However, in the tribe, they may, or your family, your clan may have talked about that for years, like years and years ago, generations ago, and you still harbor that fear. And I think we can all get to a place where you can almost connect with your family in that
energetically.
Way, right? Yeah.
They say 7 generations back and 7 generations forward.
Yeah.
And like there's a cellular memory. So I don't know if you know who Gabor Mate is.
I do, actually. Yeah. I met him. Yeah.
A wonderful man. I've taken in several of his workshops. And the interesting thing, he has written books, good books, but he does talk about cellular memory.
Yeah.
And it's not just the memory that you hold from your life, but your ancestors that are in your cells and remembered, which makes common sense because at the end of the day, when your mother is carrying you, she's actually carrying her grandchild too because the eggs are produced, right? Yeah. So there's such a strong, energetic cellular memory that is held. And we wonder why that is, but it's the field, the morphogenic field that we have around us, the torus, that we're all connected. You know, in that field, when you start to have the ability to manipulate what is downloaded in your own morphogenic field, when you change what's in there, you actually change your family's life, not just yours.
Yeah.
Because we're all connected energetically.
That's okay, yeah.
We're all connected energetically. So telepathically, family, like when my grandmother died, I was like, gosh, I was 5. But before her death, she'd always come to me and I never met her. I may have been a little bit older than 5 when she died. But it was interesting because she would tell me things about my parents. My parents were refugees. They came during a revolution, and my mother was pregnant with me.
Are you French?
Hungarian.
Oh, okay.
So it's interesting because a lot of psychics come from that part of the world, Transylvania, that, you know, all from there. There's a lot of psychics. But what's interesting is I'd never met her, but she would talk to me after she passed on, and she would tell me things from the spirit world about my parents. I'd walk up to them and I'd say, oh, Grandma told me this. So it's a little bit like your story about your grandfather. And then one day she was just gone. And I don't think she's gone. I just no longer needed her as my guide.
Yeah.
Right? So others moved in.
That actually happened with my grandfather. He would sit, like, he was huge. He was like 6'9". Like,
oh my
just
goodness.
a massive, yeah. My mom's bigger than I am. I'm the smallest of my family.
Wow.
And so he from North France, Strasbourg. That's how he got his name, was coming from Strasbourg, France. My grandmother is royal blood. Out of the Napoleon era.
So
she ran. That's why I was saying, did you come from that's why I was saying, did you come from, when you said revolution time, I was like, was that like the Napoleonic era from France, right? Because that's how her family came here. Anyways, he used to sit on my bed and you could feel his weight. That's how I knew
that he was there.
That he was there. He'd sit in the bed, and that's how my pretend friend would know that he was present. And then, since the depths of my addiction, he has not come around. Like, it's just he just doesn't do it. I'm not saying there's not other family members. It's just him. He doesn't. It's almost like what he needed me to say to my mother was what was needed. That
the message.
Yeah.
Yes. Because
my mom, her entire life, like I said, her dad died when she was 2. And her mother told her in her entire life that you're the reason why your father died. So you could imagine, right? And so then when she told her grandfather, because she was afraid of his blue eyes, he was peeking at her through the window from outside. So when she said, no more, I want you to go away, because she was scared, that shut everything off from the other world to validate anything to her. Because my mom was very, very receptive up to that point. And I was able to pick that up on my mom. Like when I was telling her this, it was like, you knew the entire time that Pape was there. Like you knew it. He just couldn't do anything because you said at that particular time that you were afraid as like a 4 or 5 year old, you know, and
She
they
shut the door.
Yeah,
right?
that's exactly. And that was the other thing that I was going to kind of mention too. In French culture, we don't teach about the boogeyman. With our Catholic heritage, we literally teach what the devil is and what God is in our language. So we never ever tell children that it's preposterous that they feel the boogeyman. We say, no, it's probably real. It's probably there. We're not trying to scare you. Pray, and you're going to be okay. Because of our understanding under the Catholic faith is you can't exorcise a child under the age of 10. Well, you're not supposed to have to. That's what I should say.
Prayer is very powerful, Justin.
Yeah.
It's very powerful. Just like affirmations, right? They're the same.
Yeah.
Right? With prayer, you're putting energy and you're connecting. With affirmations, you're doing the same thing. You're connecting to the universal laws out there, right?
Yeah.
What you're putting out, you get back.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that was growing up with my English friends. That was the big difference. I would try to tell them about, you know, like the boogeyman or whatever, and they just thought, well, that's crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. And you could see, like in French, we call it tête-à-carré, which means like square heads. They can't think outside their head, right? Because they're blocked in. They're a blockhead. They're shut out, right? So we would. That's how we would distinguish. Like already at a young age, they're closed. You know, and I'm not saying that I was really religious as a kid. I wasn't at all. But you would see, like you were talking, like the door's just closed. It's just not there. But then there also needs, I think, what I learned from my discernment was there needs to be some pragmatism that we need to adhere to with reality, because we can allow ourselves to go to a whole new place that seems very shaky. You know what I mean? And I've always prefaced this. So I'm not opposed to tarot cards. All I tell people is you don't know what's on the other side that's telling you that if you don't see an actual practitioner. And it could be like, for instance, we'll use a Ouija board. You don't know what's talking to you.
Yeah.
And the other thing is because you don't know what that is that's talking to you, under the Catholic guise, it's the ultimate deceiver.
Right. It teaches you that it's the work of the devil, right?
Could be.
Could be. That's
not that it has to be, but it could be. Yeah.
No, and I remember going to my priest because I was brought up Roman Catholic, so I did all the communions and all. And I went to him one day and I says, I'm a psychic. So he was trying to convince me. See, this is when I was coming into myself, and he's like, no, you shouldn't. No, there's no such thing, and
that's so unfortunate.
You shouldn't practice. But I kept saying to him, no. But I stood my ground because I knew the truth. When I, as a child, met Spirit or God and knew it was Him, why would I take the word of a priest?
Right.
I agree.
I was told this was my gift. I was told what to do with it.
I 100% agree. I mean, I think it was very unfortunate at the time in the mid 2000s, like the 20th century, in the mid 20th century, a lot of Catholic priests believed that they were that propagation of the Catholic Church. They were that higher than.
Correct.
And what I really like nowadays is they've lost that. A lot of them have lost that attitude. They don't really perceive themselves to be that. They are human, they are of sin, right, so to say. And so I, like, again, that older woman that I saw in Kapuskasing, I was blown away that the church was actually backing her. Because that's not normal. It would have been like a witch, right?
Correct.
They would have said, no, we're not touching that. However, I think that this was also at the time when the church started recognizing that exorcism was very, very much, this was Malachi Martin era. So if you know anything about Malachi Martin, he's the guy who actually was first ordained to give youth exorcisms, because there used to be a covenant or a promise, so to say, that the evil one would never go after children. However, it's seen more and more now where that may be a necessity to have. I mean, I can't say too much because so in my discernment, I'm bound not to talk about a lot of that stuff.
I think at the end of the day, we've seen such a global shift.
Yes. There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for getting me off the hook there.
I'm going there.
Thanks.
I'm going to go there. And, you know, it's interesting because when Mother Teresa passed away and Princess Diana passed away before her, we have these people that we look to.
Yeah.
To bring peace, hope. And we've lost that with the last person, which I believe was Mother Teresa. Mm-hmm. That person out there doing good to the world. Mm-hmm. We don't have anybody out there now that role models that.
Yeah, it's very difficult to find it.
It is very difficult. Maybe on a smaller scale we can, but not like where it was global.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in the world knew who Mother Teresa. Everybody knew who Princess Diana was, right? Now, the interesting thing with that is there's been a very strong energy shift, and globally, we're as humans, we're doing things wrong. And that's what I'm constantly being told. And our vibration and our frequency as humans is vibrating at such a low level right now that we're bringing our frequency down, not up. Mm-hmm. And we have to work at collectively bringing up the frequency of the world, the earth, humans, to save the planet, to save the life that's on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that to an extent, for sure.
It's about vibration, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's about collective consciousness, raising it so that we walk what we're meant to walk spiritually.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we had the bishop in. I was talking to you off the air about some of the episodes that I had with him. And collectively, those are his thoughts as well, is that whether you're Catholic or not, that's disregard that.
Or a psychic.
Yeah, like
Or
the
medium,
reality
right?
is that we all feel, for the most part, I think a lot of people feel at this time that we're on the precipice of something, either good or bad.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think right now we're almost in a golden era. You know, as much as I said this in the show, you probably heard it, where I was talking about we had an industrial revolution way back in the 1800s, and now we're sitting in a technological revolution once again.
Yes.
And we're going to see a bunch of jobs like surgeons, pharmacists, they're all going to get retired because there's going to be AI automation.
Correct.
And they're not going to be needed any longer. And then, like, I was just watching this other thing where they were talking about virtual reality, but it's going to have brain technology. So it's going to be able to know your thoughts. We're talking about the Minority Report here is what's going to end up happening. They're going to know. So, you know, when I was in recovery, and we'll get into how you got to psychotherapy, but I'll just preface by saying this. When I came into recovery, I probably had homicidal thoughts. Mm-hmm. Okay? Yeah, I probably had homicidal thoughts. We'll go as far as that. And the reality was this. Every human has homicidal thoughts. However, I thought I was different because I had those, and I put myself in this place in my mind where I'm sick. I'm a sick individual because I think this way, but nobody else thinks this way. Like it's almost this crazy way of being a narcissist without being able to like identify with society. You just feel like you're bloody well Hannibal Lecter or something, you know, and you're perpetuating that you're the worst person in the world. That's why you're using drugs, right? It's almost hand in hand. And when I came into recovery, I realized, you know what, there's many people who have these homicidal thoughts. Now, could you imagine, I said this so Father Jim was a guy here in Edmonton who used to do a bunch of stuff. I was basically like a confession. And I said to him, you know, these are my thoughts, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, well, and literal words here. This is what he said. He goes, well, thank fucking God they can't put you in jail for thoughts.
Oh my gosh.
So
That is good.
and that's Father Jim, right? So like, So when he said that to me, it just took the weight off my shoulders. Like, yeah, thank God they can't send me to jail for thoughts, because he goes, if they could, boy, you'd be doing like what, 7 life sentences? You know, like every day you've got one coming to, especially in active addiction, right? And so when he said that, I realized that. But then when this technology came out and they're talking about brain technology and they're going to know your thoughts,
they can hear stuff like that.
Jesus, crying out loud! Could you imagine? They're knocking at your door.
Oh
going,
my God, yeah.
Don't chip yourself.
Yeah, you've been watching 100 hours of porn this week. You're like, what the hell, man?
Yeah. And that's kind of the direction we're headed. It's
crazy.
It's frightening, and this is why you're seeing people in these countries. Yeah, chip.
Yeah.
Chip.
RDFIs.
No. That's exactly where it's headed.
Yeah.
Is it's mind control, isn't it? In a way.
And then the craziest thing, I think the craziest thing at this point is socially, there's no redemption. Correct. You say the wrong thing. I mean, we are public. Chelsey and I are public figures. Mm-hmm. We say the wrong thing in a blog, on the podcast. Nobody wants to talk to you. They just sue you.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's it. And for the rest of your life, they're going to put you up on a cross because they expect you to be as perfect as Jesus Christ, right? That's what they expect of you. And then when you say, no, I made a mistake or whatever, then what they do is they just never forgive you for it, right? They don't even take the high road on it.
Justin, I think, part of the issue in our society is people are forgetting we're a democratic society. And we all, every single one of us, have an entitlement to think, feel, and be, and say what we want to.
Yeah.
Now, you may not accept it. That's cool.
Yeah.
That is your right.
Yeah.
But we're forgetting that we're not a fascist society. We're democratic. And part of democracy is having the freedom to speak.
Yeah, I agree. I think the next thing that we have to get into here is how you got yourself into becoming a psychotherapist. Because I think that this is hand in hand pretty crazy, right? Like a psychic who's also, I mean, you don't want to lie in a counseling session with you, right? I'm just joking.
It's true. And, it's interesting because I normally don't make it known to my clients that I am also a spiritual medium. However, I've had them sometimes look at me and go, are you a psychic or something? You seem to read me really well, So how did I get into the field? Well, there's 2 stories to that. One was when I was in my 30s. Actually, it wasn't even in my 30s, early 30s. I, one night, was taken from my body and with spirits. And I was taken to where we go when we pass on. And so I was there, and it was just all energy. And it was the neatest thing because what I was doing, it was like I was downloading all this incredible universal information that was coming at me. But it felt, and I was communicating telepathically, and I felt this incredible love. And here's what I was told when I was over there on the other, what we call the other side, was we are actually a molecular part of God or spirit, whatever you want to call him. When we pass on, we actually go back to that collective energy. When he says, I've made you in the eyes of me, it's because we are him, molecular-wise. That we are a part of spirit. So that's the eternal part of us. That's the part of us that never die. And that's the information I got. So moving forward, so that threw me into even becoming more certain that I wanted to do spirit's work. And when I was on the other side, because the love I was feeling was so incredible, you can't even imagine, I said, I really don't want to go back. I want to stay here. And as soon as I said that, I was slammed right back into my body faster than you can wink. Moving forward from there, how I got into being a counselor was I was actually going to go into advertising. And I woke up one evening and my spirit guides were standing there. And they said, no, your calling is to be a therapist. You need to go into psychology. The next day, If it's your path and it fits where you're destined to be, the doors just fly open for you. So I
Yeah.
changed my path, and I registered for psychology and became a counselor, got a psychology degree. Then what was interesting after that was I kept hearing this voice say to me, build it and they will come. This is after I finished my degree. And I'm like, well, what do you mean build it?
Build what?
Yeah, build what, right? And they just kept saying, build it and they will come. And I was a single mom. I was afraid
Yeah.
because it was just me to count on. And I can't go into my own business. How am I going to make the money?
Yeah.
Well, what ended up happening was, of course, I got guided. And sure enough, I found this office. I remember walking in there, signing the lease, walking out of there going, what did I just do?
Yeah.
I've just got this extra rent. I'm a single mom, blah, blah, blah. How I don't even have the confidence in starting my own business, like as a therapist. But I did. And that was 20 years ago.
Wow.
And my counseling center is it's LOSA Counseling Center, and it's actually a holistic approach that we take, mind, body, spirit.
Oh, wow.
So
Nice.
we marry Eastern Western philosophies. For example, you come in, we would deal with depression, whatever, in a way of supplements, diet change, spirituality, meditation, all the yoga, whatever, even addictions. So that's the approach we take. So I have been the first, and I'm thinking I'm probably the only one still, where that's the approach.
I love that approach.
Yeah, and spiritual mediumship, my ability, the neat thing about where my gift marries the two is intuitively I can feel you. I can feel what you're going through. Things like that. Reading you, being able to read you. And from there, sometimes their spirit guides actually speak up in session. No, I don't go and say, hey, your spirit guides here and they want to speak to you.
Yeah.
However, sometimes I have guidance to give them without them even realizing. So, yes, it comes in handy.
No kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, for
it
sure.
does.
Yeah. I mean,
It's gone the other way too, where I've had complaints because people have found out, because I don't wear the two hats together. I'm a psychotherapist over here, and I'm a psychic over there.
Well-
Two different hats, two different names. However, if somebody in therapy wants to go into that form of spirituality, and we'll use it.
Right.
Then it becomes spiritual counseling. But it's also worked negatively where, people have complained because I'm also a psychic. So it's kind of like being burnt at the stake, just like Joan of Arc.
yeah. I know. So I work with addicts quite a bit. And again, so the policy on the podcast is that we don't talk a lot about the personal business endeavors that we're in, aside from the guest coming on the show, obviously, right? And so I work quite a bit with addicts through, we'll say, an AA means at this point. And doing so, I'm a step 5 guy. I take confessions all the time from people in AA, Cocaine Anonymous, whatever A will save your A. I can do a step 5 in that realm. And they'll be sitting there, and I think the intuition of what they're giving off happens all the time. And if you have any ability of being able to feel that,
Correct.
it's not even so much about seeing things around them. It's they're projecting their pain.
Correct.
And then, so this is always the question. I mean, this is just a step 5. I'm not breaking any confidence in saying this, but the last question is, have you told me everything? Yeah. And you'll always get yeah, of course I have. And then you tell them the secrets are what will keep you sick. Secrets are your sickness. I'll say, yeah, I've told you everything. And then we'll say, we got through your sexual inventory, but I have one more question to ask you. Have you ever been molested? Boom. It's like the hammer gets dropped. Because I know, even statistically speaking, 94% of people who are recovering from addiction, they have probably had some sort of issue with sexual harassment, molestation, or something along that nature. The other 6% is trauma-based.
Correct.
So with the trauma base, I mean, mom died early in life.
Disconnection.
That's right.
Disconnection.
And so that's a huge piece of abandonment. Whereas the molestation is still abandonment. The difference, though, is, and you always see this through a step 5, is they won't take responsibility. Like for instance, I'll use this as myself as an example. So I used drugs and went to jail, but it was never my fault because the cops were just coming after me.
Correct.
I played the victim right away, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is, if I never used drugs, I probably wouldn't be going to jail because I'm not putting myself in precarious situations.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you have to flip that perspective in the step 5. You're like, no, you're actually responsible for that. And then they say, well, my wife cheated on me. Yeah, well, you know what? You would have never met your wife. Had you not been in active addiction, you might have met better people in your life.
Right.
So we go all the way back to the first time they used. You knew the first time you used it, you weren't a normal user.
Yeah.
So let's look at that, right? I was a blackout drunk first time I drank, right? So we almost go back to that place. And then you say, time and time again, you knew that you were going to need help with this.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
And you kept on festering it to a degree. You just said denial, right? So we do that. And then as soon as the molestation piece comes out, they will take the responsibility of that right away.
So true.
So then you now have to tell them, this is what a victim is. And you literally have to go into the definition of a victim, saying, look, you couldn't stop it. There was no way you could have, even if not even past the first time, not the second time, not even the third time. There's no way you could have stopped it. You are not responsible for this at all. And the people who were around you, they may have known, they may not have known. The reality is if you keep this resentment or begrudge them, or you're angry with them, the fact of the matter is it's only going to keep you sick. All I need is for you to say to me that it's happened, and the rest is just going to wash away.
Correct.
And then boom, as soon as it happens, man, you watch that obsession of addiction just lift.
That's right.
And right away, the thinking is not the same.
Well, addictions, the thing with addictions is addictions equals disconnection. And when somebody comes in as an addict, intuitively, I have the gift to see auras. So I sit them down, it's like, okay, did you use today?
Yeah.
And of course, they don't know I see auras, but when someone
They
has
might now.
used or they're spilled that bean, but I can see the aura. So the aura becomes disjointed, dimmed, and it's missing parts.
When they've been using?
When they come in, and I know they've used because I can see it in their
Yeah.
aura. So I'll always go, did you use? And I know that they're not being honest. But the interesting thing with addictions and certain personality disorders, like psychopathy, Sanpaku. So I will look for the eyes, the Sanpaku, which is the 3 whites of the eyes.
Yeah.
So the more that the 3 whites of the eyes show, the more that they're disconnected. And drugs and alcohol, what it does is it disconnects us from our spiritual self, which is our authentic self, which is who we really are.
Yep.
Psychopaths, same thing. They're totally disconnected from their authentic self. And you see more and more of that because people, it's not just through drugs. There's pharmaceutical drugs that will also cause that disconnection. And we're living in an era of where people are moving away more and more of connecting to their own spirit.
I just made this observation with a counselor friend of mine. Nobody wants to feel.
Correct.
And I remember when I was in early recovery, I used to go to, I was this stereotypical person. I'd go into meetings and I would say, it's such a miracle that I could feel how happy I could be today. And then I'd be like, it's such a miracle that I could, and I just felt like this broken record that kept saying, it's such a miracle that I can feel, right? I was that stereotypical person for sure in early recovery. But based upon that observation, like the medication that's given for psychopathy now is to disconnect you
Correct.
from the feelings that of what anxiety is.
Right.
And like in the last episode, I was talking about how I disassociated from anxiety through meditation now. I use a silent meditation, and that was I've learned where my mind, your monkey mind, you'll be sitting there quiet and you'll hear something happen and you let your mind go and it figures it out and then it comes back. And then if I feel the feelings coming up inside of me, I'll say to myself, this is not the time. It's time to be silent right now. So I can actually look at that anxiousness and say, no, this is not the time. And now, and I wrote it in the blog, now when I look at situations and I feel that reactionary feeling coming up or reactionary feelings coming up, something that's going to be swift and I know I'm going to hate whatever is coming from that reaction, I don't impress upon it anymore. I can actually look at it as a subject and be like, no, you're not worth my time. And that all came from meditation. Like even today, I did a float prior to this episode, and I came out of that thing, man, and I was like, I'm so ready for the podcast, right? I was like, I'm so ready for this.
So
yeah, exactly. I was like, and yeah, like Chelsey and I had some business that we had to talk about prior to the show, and we came in, and it was just totally subjective. You know what I mean? I think that's what happens when even one person's able to hold that keel or keep that anchor.
For sure. Yeah.
It just sets the flow of everything.
Hold
right?
the field.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the future. I know we dived in there a little bit about AI and automation and stuff. What's your feeling about this, about where we're headed? Because it is so unknown, right?
I think there's a multi-dimensional level, not just on a spiritual, but I think on an alien plane that's happening. Yeah. And I get visits from aliens too. Like, they come. I hear them above my house. I know when their ships are up there. It always comes in the middle of the night. But, it's just another one of my guides.
Yeah.
Okay? They're not always in spirit form. Sometimes they are. And of course there's many different aliens. So I think, where's the world headed? I think that we're desperately being told to wake up as humans. Wake up. Look what you're doing. Stop.
I believe it.
Stop killing each other.
Yeah.
Right? Stop killing the world, because Mother Nature, she's amazing. She won't put up with this. At some point, she's going to shake us off of her like fleas off a dog. She has her limit.
Yeah.
And she'll say, enough, I need time to heal now.
Yeah.
So I think, spiritually, there's guidance there. But I think also, too, there's the negativity of all these other things in relations to the world order, money, all these things where we're driven by greed and money and not authentic to what we're supposed to be doing. And we're being led down that path of not being authentic.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think we've got spirits, we've got aliens trying to tell us to smarten up, but humans just
We don't listen.
dumping plastic into the ocean.
Well, so two things. I just read a theory that the reason why if there's alien, so let's go on the premise that there is aliens.
Okay, let's go there.
Let's say
I like that.
Yeah, we'll go with the premise of the reasoning why we haven't been overtaken is because spiritually we're like a naive child.
Correct.
We don't even understand. We don't even understand how powerful we are as collectively. So I was saying this to Kenny, the other co-host on the show. If you look at World War II, we should have never won that war, as in the Allies. Everything was against us. But when humanity came together in a positive way, we overcame the odds, so to say.
Absolutely.
So that being said, if we think about an alien life form with maybe technology that could surpass us and take us at any point, why is it that they haven't done it? And one of the
they could.
And one of the speculations that I had read was because they cannot surpass they cannot challenge us on a spiritual plane. And because they're unable to do that, we don't even know what we're fighting with. We don't even, like I said, we're like inept to our own spirituality as a collective whole. Some of us kind of understand it, some of us don't, but as a whole, most of us don't. And so one of the things that this article was saying is because of that, that's why we're not being challenged in this. It's like an unfair fight. Like if I were to play somebody, I'm pretty good at chess or even mixed martial arts. I fought mixed martial arts for a long time. For me to go and have a street fight is just not, I would really hurt somebody. I wouldn't do it. You know what I mean? I just wouldn't do it.
It's not leveled.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so that's almost what this article was saying is the reason why there hasn't been a war or there is no issue between us is because we're not ready for that. And
that level.
And and they wouldn't do it. It's almost like a respect of warriors. You know what I mean?
You know, some of us, I've had a past life on Atlantis, and I'm aware of some technology and other universes and everything. And Earth, like I just sit back because I do have a memory of how we used to transport ourselves around. And I look at humans and I go, cars? Really?
Yeah.
Gas? Really?
Yeah.
You know, we are so archaic and so behind of... And what's interesting, there was a time where we were even much more advanced. And here we are, regressed again, right?
So if there's any advice, what would be the advice that you would give our people listening out there, our Pride members?
Shine your light. It's like just love. Shine your light. And gratitude and just... raise your own, do what you can in your own little world, meaning your own little family. So shine that light from within yourself of love. Love all that is, because all has value, good or bad. So when you shine your light, it's like when you go and you smile at somebody, they're going to smile back.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
now you've raised their vibration. So it's about, that's how we raise our vibration. It's each of us, every moment of the day, doing what we can to raise our own vibration and frequency through love.
Yeah, I agree with that. When we came to Chelsey, she came on the show. My big thing was, and I say this all the time on the show, is does this feel like you're supposed to be doing it? Because if it doesn't, the monetary value doesn't matter in what we do. What really matters is, do you feel like you should be doing this? Does it feel like a passion for you? And if your light is burnt out, then move on to something else that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
Because there's no point anymore in going to school to learn something that's going to do absolutely nothing for you in the future.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. Like, what's your value?
That's right.
What are you here to do? And each of us has a calling, and each of us is important. And because of my gift, I was able to find my calling a long, long time ago and answer it. But we all do, and we all need to answer it. And I think it's important for every human being to look within themselves to find out what their purpose here is. Because we all have a purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was kind of funny with the way how you're saying you bought a lease into an office and you didn't even know how you were going to put it together,
No.
but it all came together.
Total faith.
So, kid you not, when it came to this podcast, I was told by one of my boards that I wasn't allowed to be a public figure, pretty much, because it was probably not cool politically, dealing in the addictions world and being in a one-payer system. Kind of probably want to shut your mouth about a lot of things that happen in the addiction world. We'll leave it there at. However, when it came to the podcast, I spent all the money on the mics, so on and so forth, put this thing together, didn't know how to download, upload, the ramifications of the legal issues, any of that. And here we are sitting at, I think, 130 hours on the air, and this thing is finally, like, it's coming together. You know what I mean? And it feels like this is where we're all just supposed to be at this moment. Like I was saying, you saying on Friday, I'll be there on Monday. I was like, oh my God, that's I called Chelsey right away. I was like, you want to sit in on the show?
Well, and I'm here because I'm supposed to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, And whoever is listening out there is supposed to be listening.
Yeah.
There's a message there for everybody.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's how I came on board. It all started with listening. And I kept saying to myself, I'm going to sit down with Justin and Kenny one day. And it happened a lot sooner than I expected.
Yeah, I think we messaged you and we're like, hey, you want to write blogs? And she's like, of course I do.
Yeah, even though I was scared shitless and didn't know how to or anything, I was just like, yeah, absolutely.
And truth be told, I remember telling her the listener base that and I was like, it's like a small Canadian town. She's like, oh my God. Why would you tell me that?
Well, I have this intuitive feeling that your audience is about to grow.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's been an amazing journey doing this. It really has. The people that we've had sitting around, and I always thought the hardest thing would be getting people into the show. It's not. The hardest thing is really to like get everything in at once. You know what I mean? Because it feels like the long form podcast thing. You have the time, right? And I noticed this with the bishop actually when he was on the show. He was all rammy. He had all of his points he wanted to say. 45 minutes in, he wanted to be out of there. You know, and then we hit that hour and a half mark, and you saw everything that his scholastics taught him from school gone, and how to PR himself, right? Gone, and he became the man who wears a mitre. You know what I mean? He wasn't.
Right?
It was amazing. And then when we started talking about the sexual abuse down in the States, and he was a bishop from up north who his diocese had residential schools.
Right.
He was actually the guy who started the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So for him to go in depth about what the Truth and Reconciliation Commission really is and how it's supposed to operate and what it does was unreal. And him being obviously the Roman Catholic exemplary on that board, unreal to hear the humanness behind, because the church never does that. The church always makes it an institution. Like, we don't want to say this. We don't want to get sued. And you know it as it's happening. And the realness will happen in a way that's like you and I sitting having a coffee. And he went to that right on the mics. Like, he just, after about 45 minutes, he just became, it's a tragedy with the Catholic Church. And for him to actually say those words was like mind-blowing, right?
That
because
is so neat.
He put the Catholic Church into action of what had happened and the tragedy and admitted it, like that was pretty. And I remember even after the show, he said to me off the record, he goes, well, I hope I'm still a bishop in a week. Right? This is literally what he said to me. He goes, thank God I'm an emeritus.
Yeah. Well, being up north, of course, he's dealing with a lot of residential schools. And part of it's interesting because as a spiritual medium, I'm very much respected amongst the First Nations community. And when I was in my 20s, I had a psychic read for me one time. And she said to me, you have a spirit guide. And he's Sitting Bull, Chief Sitting Bull.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I wonder why he'd be one of my spirit guides. Moving forward, 20 years later, I do a tremendous amount of work with First Nations communities. And I do a lot of workshops, even spiritual readings with a lot of them. And they get it. They get this gift, right?
Yeah.
Because they themselves are also very intuitive beings. And it's interesting how my spirit guide, the chief that I was told was my guide, and the reason he's my guide is because I'm helping his people. Right?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's definitely an intervention or some sort of something that happens that's bigger than us. I mean, and it's in modes, right? Like, I remember I was told and I got so pissed off when I heard this. They were like, your God's going to change many times in your life. It's like, I have a Catholic God. I was very staunch, right? It's like, I have a Catholic God. That shit better never change. That's what I thought as soon as I heard that. And then I realized to myself, look at, man, if your God doesn't change, that means you're not changing.
Absolutely.
And if you're not changing, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, you're probably in a real bad place,
Yeah.
I spent quite a bit of my university studying religions. world religions,
Yeah.
and which fascinates me. And of course, being a spiritual medium, how that plays a role in my life, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty wild to see the intricacy of it, you know? Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. So where can our listeners get a hold of you? Website, Instagram, what do you got?
Yeah, twofold. LOSA Counseling Center is my counseling center. And if you Google Psychic Elin, Elind, you'll find me there too. Excellent.
I'm hoping to have you back.
Yes.
I would like, if you're open to it, I don't feel obligated or pressured on the mic. I would like you to sit down with the bishop.
I would love that.
And I think he'd be cool with
Let's
it too.
do it.
Yeah. I'll hook it up. He's a friend of mine. I think it would be really, really cool for us. And it might not even be me. It could be you, the bishop, and yourself sitting down with that conversation. I think it would be amazing.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Let's do it.
I'm so excited. We'll hook that up.
Well, Chelsey and Justin, thank you for having me, and I look forward to seeing you guys again.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited. It was really nice meeting you. And
a pleasure meeting you too.
Yeah, thank you again. Last biddings for the show. Please subscribe. Tell all your friends, because we're going to do this episode again and again and again and again. For the After the Show blog, check out www.lifeonlifestreamspodcast.com. That's where we have our afterthoughts of the show and also a link to the show. New place that we are on right now is a place called minds.ca. Why are we there? Because Facebook can no longer kick us off of their platform, provided that we're on minds.com. It's a blockchain. Format, so we can say and do whatever the hell we want, and they can't kick us off. So you guys have yourself a wonderful Thursday, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye for now.